Hi, I'm Ethan Nadelmann. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you this evening in San Diego. It would have been a pleasure and an honor for me to be there in person to accept this award. But I do want to say to Gretchen and to A New Path how incredibly honored I am and how incredibly important it is for me and my colleagues at the Drug Policy Alliance to have you all as allies. I mean, the fact of the matter is we could not do our work without you. I remember back in the late 1990s, and inevitably in all of that drug war period, when you'd have a tragedy of somebody losing a kid to an overdose, the next thing you'd see is the parent would be up on TV saying, I want to kill and shoot all the drug dealers. I want to go after them. They're to blame for what happened to my kid. Remember, was it the guy who played Archie Bunker, Carroll O'Connor, who did that whole sort of thing. And then I remember this guy in Australia, Tony Trimmingham, who had this horrible tragedy of losing his kid in an accidental overdose, and actually began an organization in Australia to try to mobilize parents for a new approach. And we all kept thinking, what about here? What about in America? And then Gretchen and a number of others came around and began to say, we're here. We're here. We are dealing with this. Some of us have lost our kids. Some of us are struggling with kids who are in and out of addiction and jail, and God knows what it's about and who knows why it is and why one kid's okay and one kid's not, or whatever it might be. But you know something, Ethan? We don't support the drug war either. Because you know what? We realized that the drug war did nothing to protect our kids. And what we also know is that the people giving the drugs to my kids may have been their friends or their lovers or what have you, wishing them no ill. That ultimately what we know, they said to me, is the health approach, the health-focused approach that you and Drug Policy Alliance and this growing drug policy reform movement are advocating for, that's what we want to be part of. That's what we want to be part of. I said, okay, well, let's get in there. Let's advocate together for treatment instead of incarceration. And A New Path became our allies in defending, the first Prop 36, the treatment instead of incarceration initiative in California that passed back in 2000. Well, that was good. But then the issue became, how about reducing overdose fatalities? I mean, you all know this, right? More people died of an overdose last year in America than died in a car accident. And this involved dealing with people who are continuing to use drugs. And A New Path said, we're right there with you. We're going to fight with you in Sacramento. We're going to win that new Good Samaritan bill so that people can call 911 without fearing arrest. We're going to push for broader access to naloxone. You guys became our allies with that. And it's happy to hear about how just, last week or something, the police department in San Diego is now going to be able to carry naloxone so that they can help save a life rather than arrest a life when they get called to an overdose situation. I mean, of course, you also know we don't just stop there. That ultimately this is about empowering the mothers, the fathers, the parents, the families in this. It means ensuring that naloxone is in the home of every family and every parent where they're worried that their kid is playing around with drugs that could ultimately really hurt them or stop them breathing, right? It means fighting for policies where, even though what you may have seen was that the 12-step approach was the thing that worked for some people, understanding at the same time that the harm reduction approach, that the one that helps people reduce the intrusive and destructive aspect of drugs in their lives, even if they are unable or unwilling to embrace sobriety, that those two are allies. That when we're talking about A New Path means whatever path is going to work best for an individual and their family, and ultimately their community and our society, to minimize the negative consequences both of drugs and the negative consequences of our failed prohibitionist policies. But I'll tell you this, what really impressed me was when that marijuana legalization initiative got on the ballot in 2010, and when A New Path and Mothers United stood up with us and said, we're there. The fact that marijuana may have been a stepping stone, or that my kid may have used marijuana before they got themselves in trouble with heroin or cocaine, does not mean that we oppose the legalization of marijuana, because what we know is that the prohibition of marijuana did nothing to prevent that from happening. And what we know is that our children face two threats: the threat of getting in trouble with drugs and the threat of getting in trouble with the law. No reason to double down on the threats. So I got to tell you, Gretchen, the rest of you with New Path and Mothers United, I love you guys as allies. You are wonderful, fantastic allies in California, around the country, in building and mobilizing parents, bringing people to a new enlightened way of dealing with this stuff, fighting against the stigma associated with drug use and drug addiction and drug convictions. We need you. I'm honored by what you're bestowing on me and my colleagues at DPA tonight. We have many more years together in the struggle. Thank you for doing what you do.